nobody, especially in the West, there's honor just isn't much of a thing. But over there, it
Mm.
seems like it is. And I like that.
Um, yeah, well, there's this, I don't know if this is exactly what you're saying, but there's this concept called mewaku, which is effectively your um your actions have impact on other people, and you want to limit the impact you have, a negative impact you have on the people around you. You don't want to cause them inconvenience.
Yeah.
And that's a really, really strong part of Japanese culture. So I don't know if that's what you kind of mean with the honor thing. I don't know if there's still the like I'm gonna go to war and die and like suicide or whatever, that kind of thing, or like actually committing suicide because you've
Like,
dishonored your family.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that's a thing
Seppuku.
anymore. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I know, I mean, yeah, there's like the creepy part about the suicide forest. That's like a thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's still like there's quite a bit still of the like suicide by train as well, where they would jump in front of the
Yeah,
train. But
right. Yeah.
I don't know if that's just the depression because the part of Japanese culture is like a very, you've got to work really, really hard, and if you do fuck up things, like you just like, well, that's it for me, in a way. You can see that kind of being a thing, and also
Well,
like the Meiwaku thing is like I've caused so much inconvenience to everyone around me that that life would just be better without me. That kind of idea is probably pretty strong,
that's
which is pretty
very,
sad.
well, I can't pronounce that word, of course. I don't know any Japanese or any, non-Latin based languages, but um, so that whole idea, I kind of think that that's kind of similar to, in my opinion, that's similar to the idea of rights in USA. Like your rights, you have, a lot of like personal freedom and rights and everything,
Mm,
but those essentially have a limit. It's not like you have pure ultimate freedom. Those have a limit, and your rights, your freedom can eventually impose onto others. And so it seems like there's maybe a little bit of a, it's not the same thing, not at all. It's not the same thing, but it seems like there's a little bit of a common ground between what you're talking about and like some of the ideology in America or in the West around freedom and
yeah,
whatnot. Do you see what I'm
could be.
saying?
Yeah, yeah, I can see that for sure.
I'm not saying like one influenced the other. I'm just saying there's maybe like some overlap or similarities, I guess. And
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know how much like the freedoms, like the rights and everything that America kind of like built with all the shit that that happened with the I don't know enough of American history, but the
That's okay.
Constitution and how that all evolved and stuff. I don't know where all the ideas came from, but I mean,
Enlightenment
they
stuff, basically.
yeah, they were like relatively in touch with other parts of the world at that time, so I could imagine that some some stuff or ideas would have been shared.
That's actually a good point. It's not like the world was completely disconnected. Even a couple hundred years
Yeah,
ago. That's a very good point.
yeah. I don't know though.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think that you can definitely having being, if you dishonor your family so substantially that you literally have to kill yourself, that's definitely taking it too far. By all means, I can't I
Mm,
can't get down with that. But the idea that there's you have this kind of like responsibility to your family and to your culture and stuff like that, and having like honor and
mm.
whatnot, being honorable, I like that, man. I like that a lot. I don't think that we really have that anymore in the West.
I think so. I think so as well. Yeah, like just the like there's it. Well, the thing I think like Japan. If you were to compare like the cultures, the main difference between Japan and the West is that Japan is a much more group think orientated culture, and the
Mm-hmm.
West is much more individual.
Yeah.
So when you're at school in Japan, it's all about how can we work together the best to complete the project or whatever. How can we like get everyone involved to make the thing happen?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, whereas I think yeah, the West is going to be much more. How can I get this thing to work? How can I do like, all that stuff? So that's the big cultural difference, I think.
That's very interesting because it's like, oh, dude, by the way, Redo, I don't know if you're watching the stream, but Redo got all 3 of the docs. That is sick. Very nice for Redo. Well, okay, so that's what was, shoot,
Yeah.
what was I going to say? They're a lot more communal, whereas, the West is a lot more individual, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. That's my impression.
Well, I wonder, okay, so I wonder if you think about, oh, interesting. If you think about, like, not quite Darwinism, but if you think about, like, nature, not humans, but, oh,
Is she losing that villager?
no, dude! The
What HP?
scout got it, man! I know, there's a little bit of a delay, I think, on the stream, but dude, he
Yeah.
got it! Oh my god! Okay, that's completely, like, I'm distracting myself. What was, okay, I gotta get this thought out. That was so sick, dude. That
We'll
was so
watch
sick.
the game after. We can watch the game after.
Exactly, like, that's not as important. Well, okay, so if you think about, like, nature's brutal, right? If you're a slow antelope, you're gonna get killed by a lion. If you're, or an ant colony or bees or something like that. Like there's when like certain bees or something like that mate or something like that, or if they're like too old, then they like sacrifice themselves for the good of the colony. I wonder if that's like a similar vibe with the whole honor thing. Like if you've disrespected or dishonored your family so much that it's like so dishonorable, it's like you're not useful to society because you're so dishonored, so you have to remove yourself from the equation. It's brutal, dude. That's really brutal in my opinion, but I don't know, it's
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that all of Japan is like this, like that to that extreme, but
yeah.
it's definitely in the culture
Yeah.
from the past that is carried through, and there's still some people who are. I definitely think it's changing. Like I definitely think, especially like maybe the current generation, like the kind like 20-year-old ish and below,
Yeah.
it's going to be a very different Japan, I think, in 20 years.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's like, I think the whole, like, the whole communal thing, the whole honor thing, the whole let's work as a group type of a ideology. I generally like that a lot, and I think that's part of the reason why they bounced back so hard after the atomic bombs. I think that's part of their success, and that can definitely go too far and become like, I hate using this word, but it can become like a toxic, ideology if you're actually gonna, or at least what the West would probably call toxic, if you actually would feel like you need to commit suicide because of something like that. But I think I don't know, I think it's a really good thing, even if it can go too far. You can mitigate that extremeness to which leads to the suicide force and whatnot. But I think it's really cool, man. I respect that part of the culture.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't. How old is America? It's like going on. I'm gonna get this so wrong. Well, tell me how. I don't even want to say what I think how old America is, but it's a relatively new country compared to like other countries, right? Like Japan would be like a several thousand-year-old country, and you have all of that history in this
Yeah.
one tiny island. So in terms of visiting places and seeing the past, it's really, really nice for that. You can definitely go around and feel like you've explored some history.
That's a very good point. And actually, Joey says USA is too individualistic, all because of car culture. What? We need more high-speed trains like Japan? What? Joey, you think that the individualism, let's call it, of USA is because of cars? What do you think about that, Boit? Do you agree?
I don't understand the point. I don't understand what he's trying to say.
I get
Because
what
of
he's saying.
cars, it's too individualistic.
Well,
Because you can
because if
separate yourself in a box.
Well, no. It's the freedom of movement. It's the individual freedom of movement. So
Right.
if you're, if you're, if you think
I
about
mean,
like teenagers,
Mhm.
they're so stuck, with their family, with their parents. And so when you're able, at least in the USA, when you have that ability to drive, it's almost like a rite of passage that you have this freedom, this autonomy to drive yourself around. And America is so big that most of the country does not have awesome public transportation. So cars, like everybody having their own car, is still a big thing in most places.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
big cities like New York, there's people who don't drive, but anyways, yeah, so it's like a freedom autonomy type of an idea of being able to drive and having your car.
I mean, in Japan, you can literally travel anywhere on the train. Like you can, the trains go. I'm pretty sure they go everywhere. So, like, even if you're in rural Japan, like you can jump on the train and get into Tokyo and or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it's a pretty amazing public transport network. But I see what you're saying.
That's an interesting idea, Joey. And I think it's actually, Joey, flipped around. I think that cars were, I mean, it's not like a simple idea, but I think that cars were have become so important in USA because A, the lack of of like public transportation infrastructure, and B, um, I think the ideology and the ethics and whatnot behind individuality was already there and enshrined in the culture and the legislation and constitution, all that stuff. And so once cars came along, that just sort of was like a very simple like way to manifest that individuality, if that makes sense, Joey. What about
Mm,
Australia, dude? Because I mean, it's not like I know a whole lot about Australia's history, but I know
mm,
the basics of it being a colony, for Britain and whatnot.
mm.
Um, where do you guys land on the whole communal, individualistic spectrum? Let's call it.
Okay. Well, so there's two parts of Australia's history. There's the part pre-colonization,
Yeah.
where it was just Aboriginals,
Yeah.
and my understanding of their culture is is very tribalistic. It was very brutal, and it was you couldn't leave your like area. Your tribe had its area, and
Hmm.
if you were to venture outside of that area, you would be probably killed. Is my understanding of how it kind of worked. And then the colonizers came, and I I don't know enough about this history, this part of the Australia's history, that to say anything like interesting. But basically, lots of Aboriginals were killed,
Hmm.
uh, and lots of like policy into that to try and convert them into more of the West way of behavior, like separating families from their parents and putting them into schools and trying to um, educate the kids in a Western style. But basically,
So
uh,
you're saying like that like westernizing them, it was very like tribalistic, but tribalistic is very communal. Is that the connection you're making? Is it that was like the communal? I don't know. It's like, yeah, it's a small community because it's part of a tribe, or you're supposed to
yeah. So
be.
there was like hundreds of tribes all
Yeah.
around Australia,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and they had their piece of land
Yeah.
of Australia, and they moved around like nomadic, and they were
Yeah.
very, I would imagine, inside of the tribe was very, very communal. Like you send
Yeah.
the hunters out, the gatherers go out, they get the food, they bring it back, everyone eats, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think any of that culture is left over. It's basically
Okay.
what I was saying with the when everything came in, it basically cut all of that Aboriginal culture straight out, and now there is still, I think there's a huge divide right now between like a Aboriginal family and the way that they interact with each other, and the way that a white family would, also different from an Asian family or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
It's all very, very different, but yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, okay. So back to the original question. Let's say modern Australia across the board.
Mm.
Is it
Across the board, we are basically just America's brother, little
really?
brother. Yeah, basically.
That's what I was gonna.
Anything happens in America, it probably happens in Australia 6 months later.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, like by all means, that's like the main export of USA is culture, right? But still, there's like there's some nitty gritty details in, like, you know, the founding documents, the founding you know, Constitution of the USA, for example, and, you know, certain rights, how rights are looked at in USA compared to other places. In my opinion, it seems like, I don't really know, but it seems like Australia and the outback had a very, like, kind of wild west type of a vibe, similar to Western USA. So I'm not sure, but I think geographically, and maybe not quite demographically, but I wonder if geographically, I wonder if Australia has kind of evolved similar to the Western USA, like very
Yeah.
frontier-ish. Once the British came in and everything, and, you know, like you said, there was pre and post. But once they came in and started settling and colonizing and everything, I wonder if over the last, you know, couple of 100 years, if it's kind of developed kind of like Western USA.
Yeah, well, I know that there were cowboy-esque characters
Mm-hmm.
in the early when in early colonization, like Ned Kelly is a infamous example.
Uh-huh.
So there's lots of, yeah, that was definitely a thing. So I guess you could make that connection, and it would be a fair statement.
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, I don't. The way I look at Australia is kind of like, yeah, we're kind of like brothers or cousins that maybe we're like, oh, I know, maybe we're like stepbrothers, and, you know, England is like, you know, our dad or something like that. Or I guess mother, is it
Yeah,
Mother England?
yeah,
Mother England.
yeah. I don't know. That's probably a fair way to put up with it, because it's like we don't. It's like we've left. We've both kind of left home, but
Yeah.
there's still this like we can't. I think Australia very, very much so in terms of like war and the military, but we're like, what if America is ever like, hey, you guys, you stop that. We go, yeah, you guys, you stop that. And we will join in. That's like kind of the vibe.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Dude, I don't really know actually, if I'm not mistaken, I know in Canada, like, Canada, the Queen of England still has a little bit of technical power
King
available.
of England.
The king, I guess. Yes, that's,
Yes.
oh, dude, that's actually a good point. Whoa. Well, okay,
Pause.
there's a little bit of power if, like, you know, as like a tiebreaker or something like that. I don't really know. I don't really know. What's the word? It's like the
Veto or
no,
something like that?
no. The word for, like, Canada is a something country of.
It's not a republic. It's or is it a republic? It's a commonwealth.
Commonwealth. Yes. Is
Yeah.
Australia the same? Is it a Commonwealth?
Yeah, we're still a Commonwealth. But it's like the thing is, if the crown would come in and execute the rights that they technically have, we would just say, "Fuck off. We're a republic now."
Exactly. Yeah. So it's still like it's like a footer. It's like a subtext on the books, but it's not,
Yeah.
you know, it's not really
Yeah, exactly.
practiced power or anything like that.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's sometimes talked about like where like yeah we should tell the royalty to go away. Sometimes.
But do they actually like do anything? It's not like there's any actual influence,
Uh,
right?
no, I think there's like a person who is in the government that is like the voice of the king.
Oh,
Can't remember
really?
what governor general maybe is the word. I can't remember if that's the position, but
Uh-huh.
they don't really do anything.
Yeah. Kind of like the king and queen these days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Well, so yeah, I don't really know much about like the history and everything. So, the reason why I bring up the whole Commonwealth idea is because I was gonna say I don't really know all too much what that means. It's not like you guys declared independence
Mm,
from England or Britain, whatever. England, Britain.
yeah, I'm sure that I'm sure there's got to be something more to it for the reason why we aren't independent.
Uh,
But yeah, as far as I'm aware, it's just too much effort for too little reward to do it.
okay.
That's my understanding of the whole thing. If the government was like, "Hey, Australia, do you want to be independent? Here's the reasons," I'd probably vote independent. Like I don't why do we need to have this random figure that nobody cares about in
Right.
Australia?
Right.
But yeah, but I don't know.
I guess if well, I mean, like you said, if the queen or king actually tried to come in and, you know, start trying to exercise power, everybody would be like, yeah, okay, this is not happening. We're done
Yeah,
with
yeah,
this. Take it off the
that's right.
books.
That's right. Like, there's some crazy shit that the queen can and king can do, right? They can just like say, "Hey, I like this land. Give me this land." They can just
Really?
take your house off you in England. They can
Uh-huh.
literally just be like, "This is my land now," and there's nothing you can do about it. They don't do that. Well, the queen hasn't never did that, Queen
Yeah.
Elizabeth, but yeah, apparently that's a thing. It's got all this like unique power to do that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
But yeah, I imagine if it happened, it would be it would just be like, "Hang on, this ain't right," and then
Yeah.
they'd go and be angry.
Well, okay. So, I mean, I know this conversation started because of, you know, talking about Japan and whatnot and KFC, funny enough, but I don't know. Was the cultural part about Japan, was that alluring to you at all?
Um,
I'm not entirely sure how you know like Japanese and went there and stuff. I'm not 100% sure on that. Wasn't it?
yeah, well,
You do.
basically, I got sent on a exchange for 5 days to a music university over there.
Oh,
Uh, and so that was my first. It was like 5 years ago or something.
for
That's my first.
5 days?
Yeah, literally 5 days. Um, and I got to see all of that shit, and like I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And basically just went back there a couple of times over the next year, and then coronavirus happened, and then I was like, yeah, yeah, I got a lot of friends there now, and it just is a place that I can go that's very different to Australia. Um,
How long does it take to get there?
like if you go cheaply, you have to go through Singapore, so that's a 5 hour and 6 hour flight, so 11 hours. I think if you go direct, it's like 10 hours or something.
Oh shit, that's longer than I thought it would be.
Yeah, Australia's in the middle of nowhere.
Well, dude, I don't know. So I get one of the engineers I work with. He's down there in Sydney right now, visiting people. And so today I was talking to him about his trip over there, and he had to fly from kind of middle-ish of USA, east-ish USA, over to San Francisco, and then over to Sydney or wherever. And he said it was a 30 hours of travel, 30 hours of travel, and a 16-hour flight to Sydney.
Yeah. Nah, that's why people go, come to do a tour of USA, and I'm like, fuck, it's so far.
Well,